What is love, really, if not the clearest and most powerful reflection of our soul? Carl Jung, the great explorer of the human psyche, believed that love is not merely a feeling toward another person, but an inevitable encounter with oneself. It is the mirror in which our deepest shadows are reflected, those parts of our mind that remain hidden even from ourselves, patiently waiting to be revealed. If you're ready to leave behind the patterns that limit your life and attract conscious love, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Don't let fear hold you back once again. Perhaps you've wondered why certain relationships seem to repeat in your life with persistent accuracy. Why do you fall in love with the same kind of person over and over again? Why do you keep facing the same disappointments, the same conflicts? Is it coincidence, bad luck, or a trick of fate? Jung would answer clearly, what you deny submits you, what you accept transforms you. It's not others who determine the quality of your relationships. It is you who, unconsciously, attracts what you have yet to resolve within yourself. Think carefully about this. Every partner you choose, every relationship you sustain, every disappointment you endure is not just an external event. They are direct manifestations of your unconscious mind trying to communicate with you. Your psyche is constantly seeking your attention, trying to reveal something important about who you really are. Jung called this phenomenon projection, and he stated precisely, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The truth is that most people desperately seek outside what they should be finding within. We long to be deeply and unconditionally loved, yet we are incapable of offering that same love to ourselves. We live trapped in an emotional paradox, trying to fill an inner void with external affection, without realizing that no outside love can fill the space that only our own self-knowledge can complete. At some point, we must ask ourselves, what wounds am I trying to heal through my relationships? What part of myself am I searching for in another's eyes? Because when we are unable to face our own shadow, when we prefer to live under the illusion of idealized romantic love, we are doomed to repeat the same patterns over and over again, like actors trapped in a play whose ending we already know. Do well, you may feel a resistance rising within you right now. Perhaps something inside you wants to deny this truth or escape from it. Jung explained clearly that confronting our shadow is neither comfortable nor easy. It requires us to face our greatest fears, the fear of rejection, the fear of loneliness, the fear of discovering that we are not who we have pretended to be for so long. But here lies the greatest and most liberating paradox that deep psychology offers us. True and authentic love doesn't appear when we finally find someone to complete us. It appears when we are brave enough to look within and accept our own truth without reservation. The question you must ask yourself right now is simple, but its answer could radically change your life. Are you truly ready to face your own shadow, to discover what is preventing you from experiencing deep, healthy, and authentic love? Because you can't change what you're not willing to recognize, and you can't attract what you don't even believe you deserve. Every relationship you've had has been a carefully designed signal from your unconscious, a mirror in which you gaze again and again, searching for answers that you often don't want to find. Carl Jung masterfully explained the concept of the shadow, that part of our psyche that contains everything we have repressed, hidden, or denied. In his own words, he declared, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Pause for a moment and reflect on this. You've probably met someone who deeply attracted you, someone whose mere presence was enough to awaken emotions you couldn't control. Maybe at first you felt an inexplicable connection, as if you'd known this person your whole life, as if you had finally found the one who could complete your existence. But later, over time, You discovered that behind that intense attraction were hidden dark patterns, toxic dynamics, and deep frustration. This is not coincidence or bad luck. Jung insisted, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That difficult relationship, that emotionally distant person, that partner who constantly demanded more from you, these are projections of what you haven't yet recognized within yourself. Projection happens when we attribute to others those traits, emotions, or wounds that we reject in ourselves. If deep in your unconscious you believe you don't deserve love or that you must constantly work to earn it, you will inevitably attract relationships that force you to live out that belief again and again. It's not a curse, it's your mind seeking healing, pushing you to confront the original wound so you can finally be free of it. Have you noticed how certain people seem to relive the same love story again and again, only changing names and circumstances, but never the outcome? Jung would say this happens because the shadow desperately seeks to be acknowledged and accepted. Every toxic partner, every heartbreak is an unconscious attempt to show you a part of yourself that needs to be embraced. And until you do, you'll keep repeating the same painful cycles. Think about it. If you always end up in relationships where you feel rejected or abandoned, could it be because you carry an abandonment wound inside you that hasn't healed? If you attract people who constantly belittle you, could it be because you haven't yet learned to value your own essence? The shadow is not your enemy. It's your greatest ally on the path to true and profound love. Jung firmly stated, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But before that transformation can happen with another, it must first occur within yourself. Facing what you fear most about yourself is the only way to break destructive patterns and begin to attract relationships that truly reflect your authenticity. But this path is not easy. It requires total responsibility for your emotional life, the willingness to stop blaming others, and the courage to recognize that the only common denominator in all your relationships is you. This might sound terrifying, but it's also deeply liberating, because once you understand that you are the creator of your experiences, that your relationships are a direct reflection of your inner world, you reclaim your power. And here comes the crucial question that Jung would ask you. At this moment, are you willing to give up the comfort of blaming fate, the universe, or others for your heartbreaks? Because here is the truth. If you want to experience something different, you must do something radically different. You must dare to look your shadow straight in the eyes and accept everything you've been avoiding for so long. It won't be easy, but it will be profoundly transformative. Because the very moment you decide to face what's limiting you on the inside, life begins to respond in unexpected and surprising ways. Your relationships start to change. The people you attract no longer reflect your wounds, but your wholeness. But the choice is always yours. And Jung made it very clear, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And now, the most important question of all is, are you truly ready to take control and finally break this cycle? Most people are deeply afraid of loneliness. The word evokes uncomfortable images in our minds, painful feelings of abandonment or isolation. However, Carl Jung challenged this common belief, stating with absolute clarity, loneliness is not the absence of company, but the moment when our soul has the freedom to speak to us directly. Every video is an opportunity to transform your emotional reality. Join this conscious community, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss a message that could change your life. Take a moment to reflect on all those relationships you maintained out of fear of being alone. All the times you accepted less than you deserved simply because solitude seemed worse than any emotional suffering. How many times did you tell yourself that a painful relationship was better than facing yourself? Perhaps, without even realizing it, you've grown so accustomed to the emotional noise outside that the silence of your own being has become unbearable. Loneliness inevitably confronts us with our shadow, that hidden part that holds all our fears, insecurities, and repressed desires. Jung wisely said, "What we fear the most is often precisely what we need the most." We are not truly afraid of being alone. We are afraid of what we'll discover about ourselves when we are. In a society obsessed with constant connection, with external validation, and with the illusion that being with someone is always better than being alone, we've forgotten how to listen to ourselves. We've forgotten how to sit face to face with our own uncomfortable truths. Those truths that could set us free, but that first demand the courage to be acknowledged. Here arises a crucial question, one you should ask yourself now with complete honesty. What are you really trying to avoid when you avoid loneliness? What deep fear are you trying to hide behind the constant noise of superficial relationships? If you're honest with yourself, you'll likely discover something uncomfortable, that you avoid loneliness because you're afraid you're not good enough, that no one will choose you for who you truly are, or worse, that you don't even know who you are if there isn't someone beside you validating your existence. Jung called this the invisible prison of the ego. It's the false identity built in childhood, based on external approval, that now unconsciously controls your emotional decisions. But loneliness is not a punishment. It's an opportunity. It is precisely in that empty space, in that silence, you fear so much, where you'll finally be able to hear yourself clearly, because only when we silence the outer voices can we hear the deeper voice of our psyche, the one that has been trying to reveal something essential for years, that our true worth depends on no one but ourselves. How much longer are you willing to live running from yourself, taking refuge in relationships that don't nourish you, relationships that slowly drain you? Jung warned clearly, you cannot escape from yourself indefinitely. Sooner or later you'll have to face yourself, your shadows and your truths. And the more you avoid it, the louder the message your unconscious will send you through the people you continue to attract into your life. Now think about this seriously. What would happen if, instead of running from loneliness, you embraced it as a unique opportunity to discover who you really are? What would happen if, instead of fearing your shadow, you looked at it with curiosity and compassion? The first step toward deep, healthy, and authentic love is precisely to move through that initial fear and discover that on the other side there is not despair, but liberation. Because when you learn to be alone, when you discover that your happiness depends on no one else, something magical happens. You no longer accept relationships out of need, but out of conscious choice. You no longer seek someone to fill your voids, but someone who can share in your wholeness. Jung affirmed with absolute conviction, only when you are at peace with your own solitude are you capable of sharing a true connection with another human being. The question now is clear and direct. Are you ready to stop running from yourself and begin running toward your truth? Always remember this: the quality of the love you offer others will always be an exact reflection of the quality of love you are able to give yourself. At this point, we must ask ourselves clearly, what does it really mean to love oneself? Is it simply accepting ourselves as we are, with all our imperfections? Or does it involve something much deeper and more transformative? Carl Jung offered a clarifying answer by introducing the concept of individuation, describing it as the process by which a person becomes who they truly are, beyond what others expect them to be. Individuation is not a superficial act. It's not enough to look in the mirror and repeat affirmations. It requires radical honesty, a total willingness to confront your deepest fears, those wounds you've hidden for years that continuously reappear in your relationships. Jung clearly stated, individuation involves recognizing that we are not who we pretend to be, but something much deeper, something we often avoid discovering out of fear of disapproval or rejection. Now think carefully about this. Every time you enter a relationship from a place of insecurity, of need, or fear of being alone, you're not acting from your true self, but from a limited version of yourself. In reality, you are seeking external confirmation that you are enough, that you are worth something, without realizing that your worth is intrinsic and doesn't need to be validated by anyone else. Individuation is the exact opposite of this external search for approval. It's the process of fully accepting and loving your deepest essence, integrating both your light and your shadow. It means no longer denying uncomfortable aspects of your personality, those parts you see as imperfect or unworthy, and beginning to recognize them as essential pieces of your identity, because, in Jung's words, no one becomes whole by denying part of themselves. Maybe right now you feel a bit uncomfortable or resistant to this idea. That's natural. Individuation is a difficult path, because it means breaking with others' expectations and facing the deepest fear of all, being rejected for showing your true self. However, within this challenge lies the greatest freedom you can experience. Because when you finally abandon the mask, when you decide not to pretend to be someone else just to fit into a relationship, you discover something extraordinary. You attract people who have also dared to be authentic. Imagine a relationship in which you no longer need to hide, to pretend, or to sacrifice your identity to be loved. Imagine a deep and real connection where both people can fully see each other, light and shadow, without fear of rejection. That kind of love is not only possible, it is the natural result of having dared to walk the path toward yourself, the path of individuation. This is where many people stop and retreat, trapped in fear of the unknown. But Jung wisely warned, if you do not recognize your shadow, it will follow you everywhere. If you don't do this deep work, you will inevitably repeat the same patterns in all your relationships, because the unconscious will always seek to complete itself through its reflection in others. And here arises a fundamental question you should consider carefully at this moment. Are you truly willing to give up false securities to reach genuine love? Are you ready to abandon the masks that have protected you, but have also kept you from experiencing true emotional intimacy? Remember, this process is neither quick nor easy, but it is profoundly healing. It requires courage to accept vulnerability as a strength, to look in the mirror without disguising your flaws or inflating your virtues. Jung stated firmly, the most important task for a human being is to integrate their shadow, because only then can they love authentically. Individuation will not only transform your romantic relationships, it will radically change the way you relate to yourself and the world. Because when you fully accept yourself, you stop searching in others for what only you can give yourself. You will no longer look for a partner to fill what you feel is missing. You will share your wholeness with someone who has also embarked on the same path toward deep self-acceptance. Perhaps now you're wondering how to begin this process. The answer is simple, though not easy. Dare to look at yourself with radical honesty, to question all the limiting beliefs you've carried for years, and most of all, dare to be alone with yourself, without distractions or excuses, because in that silence, you will clearly hear the voice of your unconscious guiding you toward transformation. Now is the time to make a decision. Will you continue living in superficial relationships, running from your own shadow, or are you ready to become a whole conscious person, fully capable of loving and being loved authentically? Because in the end, as Jung said, you are not what has happened to you. You are what you choose to become. At this point, you may begin to understand that true love has nothing to do with finding someone to fill your voids, but with sharing your wholeness with someone who has also walked the path toward themselves. Carl Jung expressed this clearly when he said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed forever." Now think about how your relationships would be if you stopped desperately searching for someone to fill what you feel is missing. Imagine what it would be like to share your life with someone who, just like you, has bravely faced their own shadows, someone who no longer runs from themselves and who, precisely because of that, is able to connect deeply with you from the most absolute honesty, because authentic love is not dependency, it's not obsession, it's not that desperate need to keep someone close out of fear of loneliness. Authentic love is freedom. It's allowing the other to show up fully. It's offering a safe space to explore together both the beauty and the wounds that each one carries inside. Carl Jung stated with certainty, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, their love is lacking." An authentic relationship does not seek to control or possess the other, but to walk side by side through the process of personal evolution. It is that connection in which both people know they are together not out of need, but through conscious choice. Maybe until now, you believed that true love required sacrifice, constant effort, or an endless struggle to keep the connection alive. But healthy and authentic love is exactly the opposite. It's a state of natural flow where there's no room for emotional manipulation or constant fear of losing the other. Because when two people meet from a place of authenticity, neither feels they must give up their identity to keep love alive. True intimacy does not occur in perfect moments, but in those moments when both are able to be vulnerable, when they can admit their mistakes, reveal their insecurities, and know they are accepted without conditions. Jung said it clearly. True intimacy is born from the courage to show oneself completely to another, especially in one's darkest aspects. And here lies the key point. Are you ready to experience that level of emotional connection? Or are you still clinging to relationships that allow you to maintain your masks and protect your ego? Most people say they want authentic love, but in reality, they fear it. Because it means giving up the safety of the image they've built to protect themselves from rejection or abandonment. Authentic love doesn't tolerate masks or self-deception. It demands total transparency, radical vulnerability, and absolute sincerity. Now ask yourself something even deeper. Are you willing to let go of your expectations about what your ideal partner should be in order to create space for someone who truly reflects your inner growth? Because if you're searching for someone perfect, you will never find them. But if you're seeking someone authentic, someone conscious, someone ready to face the journey of growth with you, then you open the door to a deeply transformative relationship. This channel is a space created for you, to guide you toward authentic and profound relationships. Join this conscious community by subscribing and turning on the bell. Together, we will walk the path toward wholeness. True connection does not arise when two people try to change each other, but when they fully accept one another, knowing both have wounds to heal and that neither is responsible for healing the other. Because conscious love is exactly that. To walk together without trying to save, to love without trying to possess, to share without trying to control. It's important to understand that no relationship is free from challenges, conflicts, or disagreements. But when both are committed to self-awareness and shadow integration, these challenges don't become destructive. They become valuable opportunities to deepen the connection. Jung said, "The most meaningful relationships are not those without conflict, but those in which both are willing to grow and transform together. This is the authentic love you deserve to live." A love that doesn't arise from need, but from the conscious desire to share life with someone who has also committed to the inner work of growing together. Now is the crucial moment, the moment to decide. What kind of love do you want to live? Will you continue repeating the same cycles based on your unconscious wounds? Or will you finally dare to take the decisive step toward a connection based on wholeness? The answer is not outside. It is within you. And remember Jung's wise words, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Today could be the day you finally awaken. Are you ready? At this point, you may be asking yourself how to definitively break those patterns that have controlled your emotional life until now. The reality is clear. Understanding the problem is only the first step. The next, and perhaps the hardest, is to act differently. Carl Jung expressed this with total clarity when he said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." Reflect deeply on this idea. Recognizing your unconscious patterns is only the beginning. Many people intellectually understand their wounds. They can talk for hours about their emotional issues. Yet, deep down, they keep repeating the same destructive dynamics in every new relationship they begin. Why does this happen? Because true change doesn't come solely from understanding. It comes from a radical decision, the conscious decision to choose something different, something unknown, something you've never tried before. Jung explained that the repetition of patterns occurs because the unconscious seeks to complete a story that was left unfinished in the past. Maybe in childhood you learned that love had to be earned, that you had to be perfect to be loved, or perhaps you felt you had to sacrifice yourself to avoid being abandoned. These unconscious wounds continue to shape your adult life, leading you over and over again to people who trigger those same feelings, with the unconscious hope that this time you might resolve what was left unresolved. But here lies the great paradox of the unconscious. You will never heal a wound by reliving the same situation over and over again. Jung showed us that to truly heal, we must transform the way we respond to those patterns. It's not enough to recognize them. We must act radically differently in the face of the same circumstances. In Jung's words, we are not what we know, we are what we do with what we know. Now, think about that relationship you constantly repeat in your life, that painful pattern that manifests in every love story you live. Maybe you always end up with people who don't value what you offer, or maybe you constantly attract relationships where you feel abandoned or rejected. The essential question is, how do you react when these dynamics appear again in your life? Most people automatically and unconsciously react the same way as always. They blame the other, victimize themselves, or simply run from the conflict. Jung would propose something radically different: to stay in silence, observe the emotion deeply, and ask with complete honesty, what part of me is trying to speak through this pain? What if instead of running or blaming, you chose to face the situation from a conscious and courageous perspective? What if, instead of reacting from fear, abandonment, or insecurity, you acted from full awareness of what's happening inside you? I can assure you this. In that very moment, you would begin to break the cycle once and for all. However, breaking these patterns is not a one-time act. It is a constant process. Every new relationship, every encounter, every conflict will be a new opportunity to decide consciously how to respond. Every time you choose to respond with authenticity and awareness, rather than with your old emotional programming, you take another step toward the deep transformation of your psyche. Jung affirmed with conviction, the encounter with oneself is always a battle, but those who dare to fight it experience true freedom. Because authentic emotional freedom is not about escaping your wounds or pretending they don't exist. Authentic freedom is about looking them in the eye and consciously deciding how you want to live from now on. Imagine the power you would hold if, instead of feeling like a victim of circumstance, you chose to become the architect of your relationships. Imagine what it would be like to recognize your personal power, knowing that you are the one who creates the experiences you live. You would no longer be at the mercy of fate or chance, but would take absolute control over the quality of your emotional life. This is where Jung invites us to a final, transformative challenge. What you accept consciously no longer haunts you unconsciously. This means that when you face your wounds and patterns with full awareness, when you choose to look at them without fear, they stop controlling your life. They no longer define your relationships because you no longer need to project them onto others to become aware of them. And then something incredible happens. Relationships begin to reflect your inner wholeness instead of your lack. You start attracting people who can share with you from authenticity, from a true emotional equality. Because when you change internally, your external world inevitably responds to that deep transformation. Now, I invite you to consider something essential. Are you truly ready to take this step? Are you willing to transform how you experience relationships starting right now? Or will you keep waiting for something magical to happen outside without first doing the inner work that is necessary? Always remember this fundamental truth. The quality of your love life will always depend on your willingness to look inward with courage. Because as Jung expressed with deep clarity, it is not others who determine your destiny, but your relationship with yourself. So the real question is, how will you choose to relate to yourself from now on? There is an uncomfortable but profoundly liberating truth that Carl Jung revealed clearly. That which hurts you most, that which you most want to avoid in yourself, holds precisely the key to your transformation. Your emotional wounds, those parts of you that you consider flawed or unworthy, are not obstacles. They are doors toward a more authentic and complete version of yourself. Maybe for years you've tried to ignore those wounds, repressing uncomfortable emotions, avoiding conflict, pretending certain things don't affect you. But what happens when you suppress something deeply? Jung affirmed with certainty, everything that we repress comes back stronger and in unexpected ways. And that's how you end up in relationships that seem destined for suffering. Relationships where everything you've tried to hide emerges with even greater intensity. It's crucial that you understand something right now. The shadow, that dark and hidden part of your being, is not here to destroy you. On the contrary, it's here to guide you to your wholeness, even if to do that, you first have to face your own pain. The shadow contains all the parts of you that need to be integrated so you can live an authentic, full, and conscious life. Take a moment to think about the most painful relationship you've experienced, the one you still remember with discomfort or even anger. Now reflect honestly. What part of yourself were you avoiding when you chose that person? What deep wounds were you trying to cover with that relationship? Maybe you were desperately trying to prove your worth. Maybe you were trying to repair an old feeling of abandonment. Or maybe you were looking in another for an emotional security you never learned to give yourself. Jung would say that this relationship was not an accident, nor even a failure. It was a teacher disguised as pain, a perfect opportunity to come face to face with your shadow. Every emotional wound, every betrayal or abandonment is a clear sign pointing directly to what still needs healing within you. Pain, from this deeper perspective, is not something to avoid at all costs. It is a valuable guide, an inner compass pointing exactly where you need to look with radical honesty. But here lies the great challenge. Facing your shadow requires courage. It means abandoning the role of the victim to become the protagonist of your own transformation. It means letting go of the comfort of blame, of blaming others for your unhappiness, and instead taking absolute responsibility for your emotional life. Jung declared without hesitation, there is no consciousness without pain. But behind that initial pain lies the greatest emotional freedom you could ever imagine. Now consider this idea deeply. The shadow is not something to fear, but something to fully accept. It is, ultimately, your greatest ally on the path to true love. When you stop running from your wounds and begin to observe them with curiosity and acceptance, something magical happens. They stop controlling your life. Maybe now you're wondering how to do this in a practical way. How do you transform your shadow into your greatest emotional strength? The first step is simple, though deeply challenging. Stop resisting the pain. Instead of avoiding it, feel it, observe it. Allow yourself to understand what message it's trying to bring you. Maybe it's telling you that you need to set boundaries, that you deserve something better, or that your true worth doesn't depend on anyone's approval. And when you finally understand the message, when you accept your shadow without judgment, something extraordinary will happen. The relationships that once seemed inevitable will stop repeating. You'll no longer need to attract people who mirror your wounds, because you'll have consciously integrated them yourself. Jung affirmed, when you make the unconscious conscious, you free your future from the repetition of the past. Imagine what it would be like to live this way, completely free from repetitive and painful patterns. Imagine what it would be like to have relationships that reflect your authenticity, your wholeness, your true essence. This level of connection is not only possible, it is the natural result of having had the courage to face your shadow and learn what it came to teach you. The final question Jung would surely ask you at this point is this: are you ready to stop running and begin transforming your wounds into wisdom? Because always remember this essential truth: what you resist persists. What you accept transforms you. If I asked you right now what it really means to accept yourself, you'd probably say something like, loving myself as I am, with my strengths and flaws. It sounds simple, even obvious, but the truth is that very few people actually experience this kind of unconditional self-acceptance. Carl Jung deeply understood the complexity of this challenge when he stated, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Reflect deeply on this. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that our worth depends on meeting certain external expectations. We are taught that to be loved, we must behave a certain way, achieve certain goals, or meet certain standards. Unconsciously, we grow up believing that love is something we have to earn, something we must deserve through constant effort and external approval. And so, little by little, we lose contact with our true essence. We begin to hide parts of ourselves, the parts we fear might be rejected or judged by others. Those denied parts become what Jung called our shadow. And the more we repress them, the more control they exert over our lives, especially in our most intimate relationships. Now ask yourself with total honesty, how many times have you acted in a relationship trying to be someone you're not, just to keep the other's affection? How many times have you silenced your true desires, opinions, or emotions out of fear of rejection or abandonment? It may be uncomfortable to admit, but you've probably spent much of your emotional life in playing a role designed to please, to fit in, to be accepted, forgetting that no mask can be worn forever without causing suffering. Jung was very clear about this when he said, "The worst prison is the one in which you don't know who you truly are." And the only key that can free you from this emotional prison is unconditional self-acceptance. This doesn't mean resigning yourself to your limitations, nor ignoring the need to grow. It means looking at yourself with absolute honesty accepting every part of your being, especially the parts you consider unworthy, shameful, or flawed, because within them lies your greatest transformative potential. This process of radical acceptance may seem terrifying at first, because it means confronting the deepest fear we all carry inside, the fear of discovering that we're not enough. But here comes the liberating truth Jung so wisely shared. The real journey begins when we dare to tell ourselves the truth. Would you be able to fully accept the person you see right there, not for what they might become, but for who they already are in this exact moment? Let me tell you what would happen, a true internal revolution, because in that instant, you would no longer need anyone else to confirm your worth. You would stop accepting relationships that drain you or only exist because you can't bear the idea of being alone. You'd begin to experience what Jung described as true emotional freedom, the kind that is only possible when you know exactly who you are and fully accept yourself. Imagine the strength and confidence that would rise within you, knowing with absolute certainty that you are already enough exactly as you are right now. Imagine what it would be like to enter a relationship from this level of awareness, not from a need for approval, but from a conscious, free desire to share who you truly are with someone else. You might feel resistance to this idea right now. Maybe there's an inner voice telling you that you don't deserve this level of acceptance, or that you'll never find someone capable of loving you this way. But I want to remind you that those voices aren't truly yours. They're just echoes of old emotional wounds and limiting beliefs you learned as a child. Jung said it clearly, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. In other words, as long as you believe you're not worthy of unconditional love, you'll keep attracting situations and people that confirm exactly that belief. Today, you have the chance to make a radically different decision, to unconditionally accept who you are. No conditions, no excuses, no exceptions, because that's the exact moment when true emotional magic happens. You stop desperately seeking outside what has always been inside you. You finally free yourself from the need to find in someone else what you already possess by your own right. And here comes the ultimate question. Are you willing to take that decisive step toward absolute self-acceptance? Are you ready to let go of the emotional comfort of victimhood, of excuses, of the fear of being alone? Always remember these words from Jung. You can only truly love another when you have fully accepted yourself. That day, that moment, is now within your reach. The crucial question is, are you ready to embrace it? You've probably heard phrases like, just be yourself, don't worry about what others think, or your worth doesn't depend on others' opinions all your life. But honestly, how many times have you truly been able to live by those words? Radical authenticity, that absolute freedom to be who you are without fear or apology, might be the greatest challenge you'll face in your emotional life. Carl Jung stated firmly that authenticity is not comfortable, but it's the only path to a full and meaningful life. Take a moment to reflect on this. From a young age, we are conditioned to behave according to what others expect of us. We quickly learn to play roles that guarantee acceptance and love. We become expert actors, capable of adapting to circumstances to avoid rejection, judgment, or abandonment. But this constant adaptation comes at a high price. Little by little, we forget who we really are until we reach a point where our identity becomes diluted in others' expectations. Now I ask you directly, in how many relationships have you sacrificed your essence just to keep someone close, someone who, deep down, wasn't even compatible with your true self? How many times have you chosen to betray your truth just to preserve the illusion of a connection that only existed in your mind? Jung warned clearly about this danger. Every time you sacrifice your authenticity to fit in, you lose an essential part of yourself. And that loss isn't superficial. It's something deeply painful that your unconscious clearly perceives, and sooner or later it manifests as anxiety, chronic dissatisfaction, or emotional emptiness. Why does this happen? Because your true essence doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It simply waits patiently for you to reclaim it. Maybe right now you feel like you're living an emotional life built on lies, on expectations you never consciously chose. Maybe your relationships have never truly satisfied you because you've never allowed yourself to show up exactly as you are. And this is the core point. You'll only attract an authentic relationship when you dare to live in radical authenticity, even if that means breaking with others' expectations. Imagine what it would be like to wake up tomorrow without fearing others' judgment, without worrying about how people will react when they discover your true identity. Imagine the feeling of absolute freedom that would come from choosing to relate from the deepest, most honest truth of your being. This level of authenticity isn't just possible. It's essential for living fully and for finding truly nourishing relationships. But radical authenticity has a price. It demands that you give up the emotional comfort of fitting into the molds others have created for you. Jung said it clearly. Living authentically means constantly risking rejection by showing who you really are. Because when you choose to live from your deepest truth, there will inevitably be people who cannot accept this authentic version of you. But in that apparent loss lies the greatest gain of all, the absolute freedom to choose conscious and real relationships. Maybe until now, you've lived trapped in the illusion that if you reveal your true self, no one will truly love you. But the truth, as Jung revealed with deep wisdom, is exactly the opposite. Only when you dare to show your true face will you attract people capable of loving you for who you really are. Because the mask you use to protect yourself also prevents others from seeing your true beauty, your real strength, your deepest essence. Ask yourself sincerely in this moment, what do you prefer? To continue living superficial relationships that require you to constantly wear a mask, or to finally dare to live from your most radical truth, even knowing it carries the risk of rejection? This is no trivial question. It's the ultimate question to transform your emotional life. And always remember this, the moment you choose radical authenticity, something incredible happens. The people who can truly love and appreciate who you are finally have the chance to find you, because in Jung's powerful words, the real encounter only happens when both have the courage to take off their masks. Today is the day you can make the most important decision of your emotional life, to abandon the illusory comfort of others' expectations and fully embrace the radical beauty of who you truly are. The only question that matters now is this: are you ready to take that step toward total authenticity? We've reached the end of this deep journey inward, and now you're facing the most important decision of all. Will you continue living as you have, repeating unconscious patterns, or are you ready to finally experience the conscious and authentic love we've been talking about? Carl Jung left us with a fundamental teaching. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. All of this reflection, all this knowledge about the shadow, projection, individuation, and self-acceptance will only have value if you put it into practice in your daily life. It's not enough to understand these deep concepts intellectually. You must live them, face them, fully integrate them into every decision you make from today forward. You might be wondering right now, how can I really begin this deep process of change? The answer, though powerful, is simple. Start making conscious decisions every day, decisions that reflect your deepest authenticity. Stop accepting less than you deserve. Stop tolerating relationships that diminish your worth or force you to hide behind a mask. Consciously choose to walk away from any situation that does not fully honor your essence. Remember something essential. Authentic love, conscious love, is not a coincidence or a miracle reserved for a lucky few. It is the natural consequence of the inner work you've chosen to do. It is the inevitable result of having faced your shadow, integrated your wounds, radically accepted who you are, and finally chosen to relate from your deepest truth. Imagine what your life will be like when you stop seeking external validation, when you no longer need someone else to confirm your value. Imagine the peace you'll feel when you understand, with absolute certainty, that you are already worthy of love, exactly as you are right now. Because as Jung said, when you make peace with yourself, the whole world begins to reflect your inner harmony. This is exactly the kind of love you deserve to experience, a conscious, authentic, free, and deeply transformative love. But you must clearly understand that no one else can walk this path for you. It's you, and only you, who must make the brave decision to do it right now. So I ask you directly, are you ready to take full responsibility for your emotional life today? Are you ready to leave behind the excuses, the fears, the self-imposed limitations, and finally choose yourself as you are? Always remember this fundamental truth: conscious love is not a distant goal you'll reach someday. It's a daily choice, a way of living, a way of relating first to yourself and then to others. And as Carl Jung wisely put it, your task is not to seek love, but to remove all the internal barriers you've built against it. Today, here and now, you have the opportunity to change the course of your love story forever. Don't waste it. Choose consciously to love yourself in your entirety, with both light and shadow. Choose to break past patterns, stop settling for less than you deserve, and finally embrace the conscious love that has always been waiting for you. The final question is direct and definitive. Are you ready to receive it? The answer, as always, lies within you. Now it's your turn to take action. If these words resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Transformation begins with small decisions, and this might be the first one on your new emotional path.